Hey there, guys. Welcome again to Joe Knows. We are in our series, our little series called To Become One, and we're talking about having a great marriage and learning how to connect with with each other, and hopefully it's been helpful. So we talked about understanding each other the first session, and then we talked about resolving conflict. I think we did 3 sessions on that, and this morning we're going to move into what I call skills development. So we're going to talk about finances today. And the chapter that I wrote in my book is called First Comes Love, Then Comes Money, Finances. And just so you know, finances are the number one source of conflict in marriage. So considering that, let's kind of jump in a little bit. I want to give you a philosophical framework with which, and I'm going to say as a Bible-centered, Christ-centered couple, how you as a couple would handle your marriage. Because remember, the Bible tells us that in marriage, two become one. So two people come together and live as if they're one. So a couple of things I want to throw out. First of all, when you're married and a dollar is earned, it belongs to both of you. Now, you may put it in separate checking accounts, but when you're married, when you become one with someone, and you earn money, it belongs to both of you. It's ours, okay? When you have debt, when you incur a debt, that is a debt that is incurred by both of you, even though it may be him that took the loan for the car. But because you're married and because you're one, then, by the way, when you take a loan for a car, when he takes out a loan for a car and doesn't tell her, there's a term called financial infidelity. It's when you're not being honest with each other, because if that loan is now hers as well, you probably should talk about it. It shouldn't be done behind the scenes, okay? So when a dollar is earned, it's ours meaning the husband and wife, and when a dollar is owed, it's owed by the husband and wife, and that does include assets and debts that are brought into the marriage. Now, we have a concept, a term called prenuptials, okay? There are cases when people are older and they're in a second marriage. There are already children, maybe they're grown. There sometimes are reasons to be able to come to some agreements on what's going to happen. If a couple is in their 50s and they get married, they might want to talk about what they're going to do with all the money that was generated, children involved. But generally speaking, when a young couple gets married and does prenups, they're basing the prenup on the fact that, hey, this marriage, it's a back door, a side door. They're basing the prenups on the fact that, hey, if this doesn't work, I certainly want to be able to keep this stuff. So they're coming into a marriage with two become one, but there's a whole bunch of resources that they're saying, I'm not bringing that in. And I don't think that's the way God intended marriage. Okay, so those are 3 questions. We've kind of answered them. And again, we're creating philosophical framework. A 4th question would be, what is the biblical basis for determining who manages the finances? Now, I use that question, and it's a trick, because there is no biblical basis. A lot of people, when I throw that word out, they say, well, the man. And it's like, well, the biblical basis is, first of all, there isn't a basis. So what is the basis for determining who in the marriage, the husband or wife, which one manages, pays the bills, and oversees the finances? It would be the one best suited to do it. Okay? And then the last question I like to answer is, how do you decide who decides how the money is spent? So is it the person that manages? Do they make all the decisions? No. The person that manages the finances, they're in that role because they're best suited. Either they're better at it, they have more time to be able to do it. But that doesn't mean that one person decides how the money is spent. How the money that comes into the family is spent, obviously, since two become one and you're living as if you're one, is decided by both of you. Okay? And there are some great programs out there. You can listen to Dave Ramsey and others like that. I highly recommend that a family uses a budget. Because a budget helps you to tell your money where it's going rather than let it go where it wants to. Money has a way of disappearing. You notice when you get the raise and then you get another raise and you find out that no matter how much you make, it's still at the end of the month, if you're not budgeting, it still seems to be gone and you don't really know where it's going. budgets help you to tell your money where to go, and I highly recommend it. Okay, just a couple of more things I want to talk about. By the way, there's a whole series I've done on Joe Knows about finances, and you can just go into it and look at it. So I want to talk a little bit about debt, because really what makes finances the number one problem in marriage is usually when there's not enough. And then all kinds of problems happen because you're stressed, because there's not enough. So when it comes to debt, I really want couples to think through how you're going to approach debt. Okay, so what is good debt and what's bad debt? And you should have discussions about what you're going to be willing to borrow money for. Now, maybe a house. That I think that's kind of a no-brainer. You can listen to some of my other CDs about that, because a house is an appreciating asset. You may look at a car and you may say, wow, well, cars are depreciating, so maybe you say we should never borrow money on a car. And I think, again, there are people out there that tell you how to do it. I want you to think about it. So for me, if a person goes and trades in their car and takes out a car loan, that they're upside down, in meaning they have somehow, the guy selling the car convinced them if they turn in their car that's breaking down, they can drive away with a beautiful car with the same payment. What they might not realize, though, is that when all the math is done, they now owe more on the new beautiful car than it's actually worth. That's called being upside down in something. So I would say this: if you're upside down on anything that you're making payments on, that to me sounds like bad debt. Credit card. Okay, is credit card good or bad debt? Well, I personally only use a credit card, but I've never paid a penny interest in my entire life, because I'm not borrowing money from MasterCard. I'm using their money and I'm accounting for it. I have the money. I use their money. They actually pay me to use their money. And when the bill comes, I write the check. But I would want couples, even things like school, like college, maybe one of you is going to go back to school. Do you take a loan, or your children are going to go to school? These are conversations that I want them to have conversations. And I don't want you to necessarily listen to everything Dave Ramsey says. I agree. I love him and I agree with much of what he says, but I disagree with a large amount of things that he says. And it's not, and probably if I talk to him, I think when he does his seminars, he's doing it for the masses. And if I talk to him, he would say never use a credit card. And if I explained to him how I use mine and that I'd make about $2,000 a year in cash back, he would probably say, I think you got that. I think you got that down. Keep doing it, Joe. So, but I want couples to think and talk about it. So the last area, and I'm really just trying to wet your whistle and get you thinking about how, maybe at some point you get the book that I have, or even better yet, you contact me and I would do marriage coaching with you. And I can do it all over the country. I even have done it in places like Germany and Africa. I just do it by Zoom and FaceTime. But I want to talk to you about money personalities, because money, it's a really fun way to understand the way you relate to money. Okay? So usually in marriage coaching, they'll say a person is a saver or a spender. And as I was doing the counseling, before I wrote my own book, I was like, man, this is not, it's broader than that. That's just too wide sweeping. And so I found a book that, and actually I stole the title from this book. The book was called First Comes Love, Then Comes Money, Finances. And it's also where I got the term financial infidelity, when someone is running up major amounts of debt and the other person doesn't know it. You're not being faithful to each other. But I also got the money personalities, and there are 5 of them. Let me just go through them quickly. The first one is the saver. Okay, the saver is the person that in his or her relationship with money, they like to hold on to their money as long as they can. They don't like giving it away, and these are not necessarily good or bad. They have positives and they have negatives. So the saver wants to save. And if they're going to spend, they are going to make sure that they don't spend $1 more than they need to. So they're going to research purchases, and they don't just go out and buy stuff. They're going to research, they're going to look into things and make sure they get the best buy. The second money personality is the spender. Now you might say, "Oh boy, that's a neg." No, it's not necessarily negative. Again, positives and negatives to each of them. But the spender enjoys spending money. They also understand the purpose of money. You see, money is not meant to be hoarded; it's meant to be used. And savers have no problem doing that. They love to shop. They love giving gifts, and they're very good for the economy. But they understand the purpose of money is not to stack it away so you feel good. Money is not to give security. Money is to be used as a tool. Now you want to have security financially. That's where the saver comes in. But if you're only saving and not using, your life is like a vapor. And there needs to be some balance there. The spender rather, brings that balance because they like to enjoy their money. The third money personality, as we broaden this out, is the planner. The planner does not like financial surprises. So what they do is they have spreadsheets. They think about things like, I got to save for college, for my kids' college. Well, they're thinking that way before they even have children. The planner makes sure that insurance is in place. They make sure that there are things that are happening around them that really will prepare them to be successful financially in the future. And it comes in very handy. So the planner. They don't like surprises and they like to plan for things. The fourth money personality is very rare. It's called the risk taker. Now, the risk taker is willing to risk it all to gain it all. And risk takers, generally speaking, are entrepreneurial, and generally speaking, they will gain it all as they risk it all. They have an innate ability to make money. They just understand how, and it's not always from just working. They may work hard, but they're also smart, and they're also willing to be able to recognize a good deal and take a risk. They're rare. They're usually wealthy. But they also have 1, 2, sometimes 3 times in their lives, risk takers, where they actually lose it all. And for the pure entrepreneur, the risk taker, it doesn't even bother them because they know they'll figure it out and be on top again, and they usually are. So we have the saver, the planner, the saver, the spender, the planner, the risk taker, and last but not least is the flyer. And the flyer is the person that gets stressed out with the details of money. They would prefer someone else manage the finances for them. Okay, so they like to trust competent people, and they just get stressed out. They're not that interested in seeing what's in the bank account and what's in the retirement and how's this investment going and all that kind of stuff. It's just like, I don't want to know. But if they don't have someone around them that's competent, they'll either hide their head in the sand and not spend, or they'll hide their head in the sand and overspend. But they really like someone to give them boundaries. Okay, so there are all kinds of unique ways that these money personalities blend together. Some of them clash, some of them click. But when you understand the way you relate to money, it will help you and your spouse learn to play your strengths and compensate for your weaknesses and be successful financially. So I hope this is helpful. I kind of skimmed over it. There's a whole lot that we can talk about. Listen to my some of the other things I've taught about finances and about how to create wealth through real estate, using a budget, all those different things. I hope this is helpful. God bless you. I'll see you next time.